Hello, Dr. Koenraad. I know we had a recording and you were talking about an Article 295, so I would like you to,
Right.
Finish your thought.
Right. Well, the British view was that there were two kinds of people involved. This was a typical colonial view. Namely, on the one hand, you had the enlightened, mature colonizers, the British, and on the other hand, the natives who were childish and emotional. So they thought, okay, in England, you can discuss between Catholics, Anglicans, Protestants, and afterwards you just would shake hands and each go his own way. In India, by contrast, people get emotional, they can't control their emotions, they become violent, so it is best to just keep them from polemicizing.
So that's what Britishers thought.
Yes, but that's also what the Nehruvian elite continued to think after independence. They too saw themselves as a superior class of people compared to the unwashed natives. And so this attitude has continued. This is a despotic attitude. You see, despotism differs somewhat from tyranny in the sense that despots think that they are all doing it for the best of the people. And so you see here they think, well, it is better for the people to be colonized, to be guided by a class of superior beings who are more mature than them and who tell them what is good for them, what they can do and what they cannot do. The same principle is applied to questions of separatism. Namely, in England, for example, you have an actual separatist movement in Scotland that has already achieved a referendum, which they lost, but nevertheless, it was just sound politics, nobody was killed over it. In my own country, Belgium, the biggest political party and a second political party officially have as their goal the division of Belgium in the northern Dutch-speaking and the southern French-speaking part. So, I mean, in quite a few Western countries, this exists, and this does not lead to violence. In the case of India, again, you have the same reasoning. Oh yeah, you see, but Indians aren't mature enough to do that. This leads to violence. I think that is not correct. I think Indians are just as intelligent people as the rest of us. And so...
Yeah, I mean, Indians are ruling all over the world.
Yeah,
They're the
right.
best entrepreneurs. They are the best executives working in
Right.
the top-notch companies. I think what they are referring the Indians is the masses which are coming from the villages or people who become fan followers of some leaders and they actually misinterpret or mistreat them by making those speeches which creates the mass agitation. And I think that when we are talking about Indians, they're just like any citizens of any country. There are super intellectual people, first grade rated people, there are second grade rated people, and then there are people, it's not about like the tier system, but there are people who have a less less educated or who do not comprehend the things in the same way like you will comprehend or I will comprehend in a larger context. And what is happening when it is a country of 1.25 billion people, half of the country or 40% people are still illiterate, and you see, even if they are literate, they have only functioning knowledge of the education, and then they just follow each other's guts, and it creates a mob mentality. And if a person is standing there holding a speaker and a mic and then is speaking for 10-15 minutes against the state or against anybody, they just mobilize a support for themselves.
Well,
And that becomes really chaotic, and that converts into a crime.
I have a higher opinion of Indian illiterates. Now, I admit that my contact with them is very limited. My Hindi is just broken Hindi. They don't even speak official Hindi, but some local dialect. So my contacts with them are really limited. I do not have my finger on the pulse of Indian public opinion, certainly not real popular opinion. Nevertheless, I have often been impressed with the wisdom of ordinary people in India, and I don't think it is they who start riots over such questions as Kashmir. Like, for instance, you mentioned the example of a student leader defending Kashmiri separatism in JNU. Now, JNU is not a place where illiterates assemble.
Correct.
That's where the elite assembles. The problem rather is with the so-called elite.
I know, but like if that incident, let's take about JNU or what happened there, it did not convert into violent just because they were super intellectual people. They were raising slogans. There were people who came from outside or whatever is their view of that theory, that there were outsiders there were trying to take advantage of the situation. Media captured some clips, some other people captured some of the clips. So all the conversation which happened there, or all the media hue and cry on that situation is all, it's not like clean. Nobody knows what happened in the actual sense, and I think the case is in the state and in the courts, and they are trying to find more details about it. But my question is, if that incident would have happened in a remotest place or remotest village or somewhere, it could have created a mass violent agitation. Like in the case of Ram Janambhoomi, hundreds of car sevaks died.
Well, first of all, the most serious violence, namely terrorism, does not take the form of a reaction to speeches at all. This is carefully prepared, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, that is totally different.
So that is
we are not talking about terrorism,
now,
but we are talking about the street fights, just like, you know, mob lynchings or car sale. I mean, you wrote about Ram Janambhoomi, right?
Yes.
There were people who died in the agitation. My father was there, he was doing the car seva. He was lucky enough not to die, but he saw people dying in front of him with the bullets by state, with the bullets, some unknown bullet, or I don't know what was it, but there were bullets by the state.
The soldiers firing those bullets were not reacting to some speech. You see, they were
But
just
that
following
mob,
orders that were
but
taken
that
in
mob
full
was
calm.
created. But that mob was created, frenzied by speeches made by different leaders at different times during that whole Ram Janambhoomi movement.
Well, then I think it is the responsibility of citizens to calm hot-headed agitators down. I still don't think that the state should prohibit that speech. Now, if that speech leads to explicit calls to violence, then there are curbs in many countries, not just in India, on that kind of speech, and that is an acceptable form of curbs on freedom of expression, I would think. So in that ultimate case, you know, you can argue for the state intervening against those agitators. In general, I would interpret the right to agitate as broadly as possible. So, you know, to make my point really clear, I still think it is allowed to agitate for, you know, breaking India into Tugde.
Yeah, well, that is absolutely wrong. That is absolutely, anybody can understand.
But it is the responsibility of citizens to intervene, to counter them. You see, to say the truth, to talk in favor of unity and integrity. There, I don't think that the state should prohibit this speech.
That is okay. But what if the citizens, the other citizens who don't like that speech, they take the law and order in their hand? They start throwing stones on those people or those leaders.
Well, then that is still no reason to prohibit their speech. You see, because that way you give a veto power to whoever is ready to take to violence. If the state in that case says, oh, watch out, there's a group willing to commit violence, therefore the other side is not allowed to speak, that means that you can shut anybody up just by threatening violence.
I know, but don't you think this is the duty of the state to provide the protection?
It is the duty of the state to provide the protection to the speakers, to protect freedom of expression. There has been,
how would that
here
happen?
in America, during the agitation for civil rights, there was a demonstration planned in the southern United States where they were going to demand civil rights, and a lot of resistance was expected from natives of that place, and the mayor therefore said, I will not allow this demonstration because I cannot guarantee the safety of the demonstrators. This was then brought to court,
Exactly.
and the judge said, on the contrary, it is the duty of a mayor to protect constitutional rights, including the right to demonstrate peacefully. Therefore, the mayor has to guarantee their safety if necessary. He calls on federal troops or whatever. You see, he does what is necessary to protect this right. He should not side with the people who threaten violence. No, he should side with the people who exercise their freedom of expression. You see, that was a very correct decision, and I think it is in that spirit that this kind of problem should be approached.
Absolutely. So in order to take home message is that the first and foremost, there should be a clear distinction between whether this speech or freedom of expression is used against the state or against the nation. And the first and foremost people who will make that discrimination is the law and order, which means your police, your military personnel, or whoever is controlling the situation, right? They have to make sure that they know exactly what kind of language is being used and whether that language was used to instigate violence or it was used to convince people to take certain actions against the state, not to the nation. Is that a fair statement? So again, my statement is that you can raise the voice against the state. It should be allowed as a part of freedom of expression, but it should not be against the nation.
Well, I don't know. That's a complicated.
But who will decide? Who will decide what is against the nation and what is against the state? That's a big question.
Yeah, exactly. You see, there again, you get the same colonial reasoning. Oh, you see, intelligent people can make the distinction, but this rabble over there in India, they cannot. Therefore, they should be held back. Well, I disagree. And maybe you see in the culture, the prevailing culture of debate, people should be helped along to be more mature, more tolerant of difference of opinion. Education can make a difference there.
Do you think
so you see, there may be a long-term project of facilitating this further, but the situation is really not serious enough to make it legitimate for the state to curb freedom of speech.
Right. Okay, with that we'll end this session, and we'll talk some more. We'll talk to Dr. Koenraad and we'll ask him some more questions. Thank you very much.